Hey there, Bear Club! At the Mama Bear Initiative, we explore how to protect ourselves so we can protect our cubs, the people who depend on us. Join us and get the confidence you need to stay safe, make good choices, and protect yourself and those you care about. Let's go!
Oh, it's the... Okay, never mind.
It's the... What? Never mind?
It was the start of the recording.
Yeah, it counts
it
down.
does. Every time!
How long have we been doing this?
Surprise! Surprise! It's doing what it always does.
9 months or so on video recording.
Oh, look, I just
Something
sat up
like that.
straighter. I sat up straighter, now I'm taller than y'all. Hold up.
Oh,
Posture
good.
check. Okay.
ugh, my back hurts.
Yeah, mine does too.
So I see everybody's eyebrows have come to the party.
Yes, ma'am.
I did
Mine
a little
always come to the party.
extra on the eye makeup.
Very
Looks
nice, very nice.
I think
I
all
made
of
sure
us
I put
have...
on enough
go ahead.
eyeliner this time. Go ahead.
Yes, and we all have the lips in the room.
You guys
The
gotta
lips
teach
are
me how to...
here, eyebrows are here. I think we're good to go. I think we look like humans.
Someone's gotta teach me how to do color and eyeliner sometime, because I don't know how to do that. I
Okay.
haven't mastered.
We
All
can
right.
play
You wanna
beauty
know how to
shop
color?
sometime.
I think
All
I
right.
got some crayons around here somewhere.
Crayons.
I think she means
said
on her eyes.
Oh.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
YouTube
anyway,
is helpful.
welcome to the Mama Bear Initiative podcast. I'm Stephanie Dunham.
I'm Evelyn Mason.
I'm Rochelle Knapp.
Yeah, we'd like to thank you for joining us today on our podcast. We hope you get something out of it. We're going to be talking about what progress looks like in trauma recovery because it can be awfully slow and laborious.
And tedious.
And it can
painful.
tedious and painful. We talked about pain last week,
Yeah.
so you can check that out. But yeah, it can often feel terrible. So we need some guidelines or something to help us know, like, if we're doing good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And
Definitely
I
do.
think Rochelle did a reel on that, which kind of inspired us.
Yes.
Yes. Wow. so much good. So many conversation.
Okay, well, I'll talk about
Much
my
word.
Much word.
Much
word.
word. Okay, I'll talk about why I made the reel in the first place.
Yes,
I've
why don't
mentioned
you?
this several
Please
times.
do.
I think in the podcast, I'm testing Saturday for first time in a very long time, and the process of getting there was extremely slow and difficult.
Yes, Stephanie?
Tell
And-
the audience what you're testing in.
I'm testing in 8th Q for martial art, and we'll move on to 7th Q, finally, after a very long time. Now, technically, it's been 2 years because we switched organizations, but overall, it's been about 3.5 years.
3.5 years.
And progress in that, it's the first thing I've ever done in my life where I stuck with it and didn't give up, even though I wanted to many, many times. And trauma can feel like that. I know by experience that trauma can feel like something you just don't want to do. You want to give up on it because it's hard and it hurts a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also learning how dealing with those emotions and dealing with trauma is the same in a much deeper capacity, but essentially the same thing as learning something new and trying to beat the odds as hold on, sorry.
Beat the odds as
I accidentally hit something. Just go back here. There we go. Okay. Anyways, beat the odds and overcome the difficult things. I am not a person in my life who's been consistent, and it's mostly due to trauma. There is a lot of responsibility on me as well. But the source is because of the trauma I suffered as a kid. And Stephanie said a while back that my potential was ripped away from me, and it was, essentially. Because when you're in an abusive trauma situation, you're literally in survival mode the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And you have no room to grow as a person, really.
right.
And learning that at middle age, when I should have learned it sooner,
Mm-hmm.
makes it even more difficult because it makes you feel like, I would say this is probably the biggest negative to me as far as trying to learn how to change at an advanced age. is that you feel like a failure for most of your life because you didn't learn it when you were younger. But one of my therapists pointed out you couldn't have, because you were surviving. You couldn't do the normal things people do when they grow up.
Right.
And so I think Evelyn said recently, it doesn't matter what age you start. Yeah. And we need to put that shame of why haven't I done this sooner behind us and try to move forward.
Yeah.
And I'm already crying.
Got some tissues handy?
I just don't want to mess up my eyeliner. Like, what do I do?
Rochelle's eyes want to leave the party. They're gonna rub off and walk away, or something. Not
actually real.
Gentle dabbing with a tissue.
Yeah, if I could find one, sure, definitely do that.
Or fingertip,
or fingertip. Yeah, if you don't That's find true. One, I do that at church a lot. It's like tissues, whatever.
I have a tendency to put eye makeup on and then get upset and then do this.
Oh yeah,
that too. A quick little rabbit trail. I was watching.
As I'm in the middle, I'm like, oh crap! I put eye makeup on.
Yeah.
Oh well.
This woman, she's at work and she goes and has a schedule to cry. She comes back and her mascara is running down her face. She's like, I feel better now.
I know. I was having a rough day at work, and at one point I was just like, ugh. And I went, oh well. It's like a little mirror and go, oh, okay.
We're good.
Yeah, I think when it comes to like trying to figure out if we're progressing or not, Rochelle, you'd mentioned about being in survival mode. That's kind of like just, you're not really, it doesn't feel like you're getting anywhere, but at least you're not, life isn't taking you under. So it's more like, to use, I guess, a swimming analogy, to just kind of like treading water. But, and to spend most of, like in my case, most of my life in basically treading water, in survival mode from somewhat rough childhood to an abusive marriage, and never really knowing who I was as a person myself, just taking on roles and just trying to be whatever, what does a good daughter look like? Okay, let me do that. What does a good wife look like? Good wife look like? Let me do that. What does a good mother look like? Let me do that. Yeah. And it's just like one role after the other. And then, eventually the mental health issues finally were like, notice me, like, I haven't had time for you, and then to start to address it can feel very daunting.
Which is ironic, because the mental health issues are there and affecting you, whether you realize it or not. Not paying attention to it doesn't mean that they're not affecting anything.
Right.
Yeah. Just not seeing it, not realizing. There again, in sort of a survival mode, I think also says, well, this thing is bothering me. What do I need to do so I feel better? We talked last week about, leaning into pain, because that's the way to ultimately get better, even though you don't feel better. But in survival mode, it's just, especially if you're really busy, busy mom. I was, raising 4 kids, homeschooling them and everything. I didn't have time, I'm putting that in air quotes too, for dealing with my mental health issues, but they were absolutely causing damage. And I just didn't take the time to stop and really look at, where we were and why.
Yeah. And all of the other stuff that we do covers up that, what we need to be looking at, like all the distraction. And I don't know if we're creating that to cover up, but it definitely will cause that. And we can be in denial about what's actually going on. I was for many years, about how bad it actually was. And even at 28 years old, when one therapist, this is a really hard story to tell. A good story, but it's very emotional for me still. I was not in denial. I just didn't understand what it meant to have trauma. Even though I've been in the hospital multiple times by that point for severe depression and other things. And she stopped the session she got down in front of me and she like put her hands on my face and she said, "Honey, you have been traumatized severely. You were abused." And that was a big breakthrough moment for me when I started to understand what that meant. But even after that, I still didn't get out of survival mode and start working on it. It just sort of stayed in my mind and my body for a long time without me really even facing it.
Yeah. So I have a slightly different story than Rochelle and Evelyn. I knew right away to get help when I was 19, because that's when things started manifesting. I was having flashbacks, and it was troubling enough for me to go, what the heck is this all about? And to seek help. And I started, so I'm 55 now. Yay!
Yay!
So it's been, I was almost 20 when I had turned 20. I wasn't 19. I got a little mixed up because I got pregnant at 19, married at 19, and then not long after that I turned 20. And then I had a baby. But after I got married, after I turned 20, I started therapy. So it's been 35 years. And, you know, I sometimes think about my 20-year-old self and like that poor girl. She had no idea what was going on. I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't know what wasn't right. I just knew that, you know, I needed help. And, you know, I haven't stayed in therapy for 35 years straight, but I've been in therapy for most of my adult life. Currently in therapy with the same therapist now. I think I've been with him about 3.5 years. Which has been very good. But along the way, you know, I was a very different person than I am now in my 20s and even in my 30s. It's really mid 40s when things started to kind of ramp up a little bit. I started to get a better, I like had a moment where I realized this was a lifelong process. It wasn't going to just go away because I spent 3 years in therapy. Because by that time I was on my like 5th round of therapy for several years. I realized this was long term. It was going to take a lot of work, probably for the rest of my life. You know, but looking where I'm at now and looking back to where I started, I can see the progress. Like there's certain things that were really difficult when I was in my 20s and 30s, socially in particular. How I managed my emotions. I still, to this day, struggle with a great deal of anxiety. I was depressed most of my life. I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder. I don't think I'm depressed anymore. I think that's largely due to the progress I've made, getting me to the point where I could do the things I'm doing. And now that I'm active and productive and like have meaning to my life, I don't feel depressed. But the anxiety piece has been kind of crazy and to deal with. But I feel like I'm making progress because I can more easily tone it down. Not always, but often. And that's just a matter of work. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of effort. But I think where we have to start is recognizing there's even a problem to begin with. Because I think you guys were kind of talking about that, right?
Yeah.
So you didn't even know you needed help until you knew you needed help.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even after my therapist told me that, there was still a lot of disbelief. I think when I was about 35 was when I understood like how bad it actually was, like the abuse I suffered through. And I don't think I was in therapy at that point, but I just understood like it was really bad. And I knew in the back of my mind I was going to have to do something about it. I had been in therapy off and on for, I don't know, 20 years now, probably, maybe longer. And I didn't make the connection between the need for therapy and the need for healing and this I had this idea, and I think was pushed by society, that mental illness is not real and you just have to. And I don't think I took it to that extreme, but there's some idea and some degree of like, mental illness isn't real. You just have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and just get on with your life and leave the past behind. And none of that's true because you can't. I learned this in psychology, and I've seen it when I was in college, and I've seen it in my own life. It does not. Trauma will not leave you. Your PTSD will not go away. You have to deal with it. There's no escaping it. That's just the way it is. People do not like hearing that. That is reality.
No. Yeah. But yeah, that's reality.
For sure. I know for me, there's a stigma around mental illness. It just, I don't even know exactly, as far as it impacted me directly, where I got this idea, but I think to a certain extent, if somewhere I picked up along the way, if you're a Christian, you're not mentally ill. You can't be mentally ill as a Christian.
That too. Yep.
That God doesn't want you mentally ill, and so he will take it away. Or if you, like, there's something wrong with you, there's something off if you have that. I had heard people that I respected call, like, getting therapy, like, you go and listen to that psychobabble, and, sort of like Rochelle was saying about, you just have to, leave the past in the past. And I took my mental health episodes as anomalies. I think it was probably Steph who was like, F, you and my family as well. She would say, you and your family are treating this like a one-off, but there's a pattern here. Can you see? And it was there, but I didn't want to see it there again because some of my core beliefs were skewed. And I thought, if I'm a Christian, I can't be mentally ill. The two don't go together. So I know I'm a Christian, so I guess I can't be mentally ill, but sometimes
I'm fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
As the world's burning around you. Yeah.
Yeah. If you picturing that meme. Anyway, but it, like we've said, but it continues on. I could not acknowledge it, pretend it wasn't true. My beliefs could stay skewed, or they could become aligned to what's true. And facing the very hard fact that not only can Christians have mental health issues and trauma, I have mental health issues and trauma. And even saying it out loud, I am not okay by myself. I need therapy. I need God. I need my medication, and I need the steps, the tools that I've gathered. I need to not just go, oh, that's an interesting concept, but when I am melting down or when I am struggling, like I was struggling some at work today, and I was like, oh, I know what's going on here. So I had a few minutes. I left my desk, went for a little walk, and came back. But yeah, like accepting it, not just in theory, but in fact, not just for somebody else, but for me. And that was definitely the genesis of actually taking it seriously and finally starting to make some progress instead of continuing to fall back and letting my emotions rule.
Yeah, I want to talk about that whole Christian thing for a minute, because I think that's a progress hinderer. Did I just make up a word? Hinderer?
Hindrance, dear.
Oh, hindrance.
But hinderer is kind of fun too.
Anyway, a progress hindrance, because there seems now, I'm not saying every church is like this. I'm not saying every denomination is like this or every style of Christianity is like this, but there are particular sets of theology out there that say basically what Evelyn said, that psychology is evil. You don't need therapy. You only need God. I don't know if you remember, Rochelle.
I know a story you can tell me.
But when Rochelle was in kind of like a cult type thing, and we kind of ran into, we weren't talking to each other in our 20s, but we happened to run into each other at the old Walmart where she used to work. And we kind of started talking again, and she was telling me that I didn't need, because I was already knee deep in therapy and whatever. She's like, you don't need therapy. The work was done on the cross, et cetera, et cetera. And she soon changed her tune a little later when she got out of the cult. Thank God.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But I spent my first 25 plus years in a charismatic environment, which, if you're listening to this podcast, you don't know what that is, just Google it.
Yeah.
Anyway, but they definitely had the mentality that all you need is prayer. All you need is to confess what's true. And to them, what was true is that I'm healed and that I'm free and that I'm, whatever. And I chased all kinds of things. Whatever they gave me, I was like, I'll do it. Deliverance, healing prayer, different kinds of healing prayer ministry things specifically for mental health issues, or different kinds of like issues. I don't even know what to call it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I think God really did show up in those moments, even though now I think those things are not legit. I'm not saying prayer doesn't work, but I don't think it works like a lot of charismatics and Pentecostals think it does. And, I can't name it and claim myself to healing. It just, I've tried it. No. It just doesn't do any good. No. I can't journal my way to healing or freedom from anxiety. It just doesn't work. And so it became a big, like, if I was in actual professional counseling, I was making progress. Occasionally there would be some kind of miracle that would happen that would be setting me free or whatever. But for the most part, none of the things that I tried really helped. In fact, they hindered me because they trapped me in this sort of belief system that I was damaged and sinning and unable to get free. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And if you have that sort of thinking, how can you get better? I think there's a certain amount of hopelessness. Yep. I know for me, I would be like, okay, what did I do? What is my sin? And I just start confessing of something. I remember one time, okay, this is kind of funny. So I'm like racking my brain, I kind of bullied that kid back in third grade. And, I'm just, did I ever repent?
You're trying to connect the dots right between something you did and why you're struggling. It doesn't work like that.
And here's the funny thing. I was like, I was just repenting of everything I could think of. And I just sensed the Lord. I just sensed the Lord going like, stop it. You already covered that. That's not at all what this is about. It's not about sin. It's about a broken, fallen world. And I had some terrible things that happened in my life. People made choices. I made choices. And, I'm kind of a mess, and I need God. I need help. I need therapy. I need to do what it takes, and not deny it or try to fix it, I think
what people don't give enough credit to is the fact that, complex PTSD or CPTSD, is brain damage, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's bad wiring.
Yeah.
And that it's a disability. Like we're all actually disabled.
Yeah.
And if you don't look at it that way, then, why are you so worried? Just stop worrying is the answer.
Yeah, just flip that switch.
Why don't you just go write about it or go pray about it or sit in meditation about it? And I've been listening to this book by Pete Walker, And he's basically going over these sorts of things like these things don't work for people like us.
Yeah.
And believing that it will is a real huge hindrance. It's not hinderer, a hindrance.
Hindrance. Good job. That's the right word.
Yeah. Yeah. I think something I've thought about a lot lately is the idea that I can't be who I thought I was. I would look at someone who seemed to have their life together and be jealous of them and want to be like them. And jealous is too strong, so maybe envious is a better word. And I still struggle with that at times. I'll compare myself to them, and I'll think, why aren't I more like this person? Why am I struggling all the time with these things? What's wrong with me? And of course, there's a certain amount of responsibility on my part, obviously. But I'm not going to do things the way that person does them because I'm not them. And that's hard to accept when you want to be something you're not and you may never be.
Right.
You have to figure out what your version of this thing is. And that applies to the martial art I've been taking because I currently have physical limitations I'm trying to overcome. And they are overcomable. It's going to take a lot of heck of a lot of work. And like, I can't be this person. I'm not going to be that person. I'm me. And accepting that, I think, is a big step towards, it's painful, but it's a big step towards changing the way you look at yourself as someone who's been severely traumatized, as someone who's been abused. Because if you can see yourself and see your own worth, which I think that's where this is headed, then you understand, like, it's okay that I'm not going to be doing things the way that person does them. I may never, or I may learn from them, but didn't do my version of it, whatever it looks like.
I am never going to be a superstar achiever. The world wants me to be, right? You've got talent, use it. And I'm like, except that there's like 15 things in the way.
Right.
Yeah.
That I have to work around or work through, or, I had to this year to manage working on my eating disorder and food addiction. I still get used to saying that out loud and admitting that that's what it is. That's progress. I'm admitting it out loud. And also dealing with some grief about, the lack of family in my life.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into that whole thing, but I had to set aside some things and not do things that are going to zap me of energy that I don't have the fortitude for. Like, I started a book, which I still intend to finish, but there are things in the way that make it slow.
Yeah.
And I can achieve, I guess, but it's going to be slow. I'm not a get up and go getter type of person. I can't get up in the morning and just achieve all day. It's not physically, mentally, emotionally possible.
Yeah.
I have to stop. I have to rest. If I get triggered, I have to deal with that. I have to plan for things that really matter to me, like the dojo. So progress is really, 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 really slow.
Yeah. And it's personal. As we were saying, I was thinking about that trap of comparison. And people have talked about this, but I think it kind of bears repeating because it's something that I struggle with as well. I had a rough day at work today. I'll just say it. I'm struggling with the project, and I had done something before, and now I could not for the life of me remember how to do it again. I got somebody waiting on me because I couldn't remember. Anyway, it's a whole thing. And I get in there and I automatically think that everyone around me has their act together. Why do I assume that? Why do, and I know that we have been told, and I think it's important to remember that you have no idea what someone else is dealing with unless they tell you, unless they give some sort of clues. I mean, I decided to just set aside the assumption that everyone else has it all together for the most part.
Right.
I still struggle with comparison, but I have no idea. I mean, what I present at work, it's a version of me, but they don't see me when I'm in my room crying and struggling, and they can't tell when I'm sitting at my desk that I am terrified, like, for example, which can happen, and I still have to do my work and get through the day. So I think remembering that, that we're not the only ones struggling, and it's probably a lot more pervasive than we know.
And I think it's safe to say everybody has trauma of some kind. I don't think you escape this life without it. I think it's safe to make that assumption because everybody has things, even if nothing happens to them per se, like a family member or something like that, something happens along the way that creates trauma in your life. And I've seen it in my job, like every day, people trying to feed their addictions for that reason. And it's varying degrees across the board. Doesn't matter what state of life they're in, it seems to be pretty universal. And I think that should comfort us in a way, but also make us feel like, my God, this is really terrible. But there's hope for people who see it for what it is and want to change. Like, it's hard to come to that place of acceptance of, I went through this like 5 or 6 years ago, that this is going to be my life, dealing with this complex trauma, being an abused kid. That's part of my life. That's just the way it is. It took me a long time to accept that. And I think people want to move on because they don't want to deal with the pain of that reality. Whatever degree of trauma they have and whatever it is, and it may be much simpler than, someone like us. But they still have to deal with it either way. You can't just move on from it.
Yeah.
And anyway, I kind of lost my train of thought.
That's okay. I have a question for you anyway.
Sure.
Do you think that getting to the place where you have accepted, would you consider that progress?
Yeah, definitely. Because I wasn't fighting that inevitability.
What was the what did it look like in the beginning, the middle, and the end of coming to acceptance?
The beginning was trying everything under the sun to get rid of it, to run away from the pain. The middle was, oh my gosh, this is not going away. What the heck am I supposed to do now? And feeling overwhelmed and drowning in the pain of it. And then finding the way out of that was understanding this is just how it is. This is just the way my life is going to be. And when we did that presentation about the brain, that's when it really solidified for me. Like, that's when I was like, oh, wow, it's actually, my brain was actually formed around this trauma. So
what presentation about the brain?
The one we attended or the one we did?
Yeah, the one we attended.
Okay, so I'm like, I don't think we've done a presentation about the brain.
No, I was like, I was out of town that day.
That was when we talked to the Zoe Ministries counselor, and she gave us a slideshow.
Yeah, I didn't want to say her name. I wasn't sure how that worked.
I didn't say her name.
So, but that really solidified for me, like, oh, okay, now I get it. Like, I really understood. My brain was literally formed around this trauma. So I have to accept it as it is. And, I could go there and stay there and be bitter, but the reality is it's miraculous that, people are looking for miracles, and it's a miracle when someone chooses to live whatever you define success as, despite their trauma, despite their PTSD. When they make the decision to keep going and keep trying and keep fighting, that's a miracle to me. We're looking for breakthroughs, but in reality, the breakthroughs are far and few between. But if you choose each day to get out of bed and do what you got to do and survive and try to thrive and try to heal in some small way, I think that's a victory.
I'm of the mind that at least it's been my experience that, I'm like working really hard at one particular thing, or maybe several particular things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just be like zoned in on, I'm like zoned in on that thing. And I'm not really paying attention to where I'm at with it.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I'm not really recognizing the effort and how it's changing things. And then all of a sudden I'll arrive somewhere emotionally and something will have changed. And I'm like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
But it's like all of a sudden something just goes pop. Oh, now I'm in a different reality.
Yeah.
My progress has looked a lot like that.
I've had similar experiences, but it's funny because it's only been very recent when I've realized the level of work that I just have to do if I'm going to make progress. There are certain things that I've learned how to do that work, but they're work and I have to put in the time. And so a lot of it was kind of like you were saying, Steph, where I just put my head down and go, okay, I need to do this, whatever it is, and I need to be in the right state of mind. I need to work on this, even just getting up in the morning. I have to, get ready to go to work because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know where my mindset's going to be. I don't know what's going to trigger me. And now I'm off in another place for a while, which is how it used to be. But
Right.
I'm at work, I've got this responsibility and responsibility. And in a way, it helps me to stay focused on my recovery because I realize the impact that my not working on it has on others, how it's had on our little group here, as well as what can happen at work. And there have been a couple of times where I've let things go a certain direction at work where I'm like, oh, because they might not be as understanding as my closest friends, and I was like, I got to really work on this. So when I had, recently I had something come up where, and we mentioned this in the last podcast, but this sort of thing has been happening at work and even happened today where there was a way that things could have gone. And it was me getting very upset, all up in my head, full of shame. I should know how to do this by now. And I'm ashamed to ask for help and, self-punishing and I have to figure this out. And instead, I felt myself going that way today. But I caught myself, like I mentioned about, I'm starting to get in that weird zone. And I reached out for help. Now, the person I reached out to wasn't able to help me, but I didn't even think about, I need to solve this on my own and not ask for help, which is where I would always go. It was, all right, I'm at an impasse. I'm going to go ahead and reach out for help. Plus, I'd mentioned about going for a walk so I could kind of clear my head. And, to a certain extent, I also find that, we mentioned about there's not necessarily a quick fix, but progress is realizing I can at least make things a little bit better so that I'm able to do what I need to do and not let this thing drag me emotionally and mentally where I can't even do my work.
I think there's an assumption a lot of times that people have that if they start to focus on changing something, this is going to be steady, linear, like uphill, like this, and it's just going to be nice and smooth, right? And let's say, 30 times a week you do this thing that's a hindrance to your life, not a hinderer. Anyway, I guess that's going to be the phrase for the night. Anyway, you do this thing 30 times a week, every week, right? And it's a hindrance to your life. It's causing you problems. And you want to change it and you want to stop doing it, right?
Yep.
I think the assumption is, well, I've decided I'm going to change it, so I'll be done pretty quickly. I'll be over this. I'll be moving on. That's not reality because it actually is going to look more like, I don't know, the first few weeks, first 8 to 10 weeks, it's probably going to be mostly 30 times or maybe 29.
Yeah.
Right. And then the next few weeks, if you've managed to do that,
Mm-hmm.
then in the next few weeks, you might do it 28 times or 25 times. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And until you move that needle, it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And people expect it. So then they get to, I don't know, the third round and they're like, well, this isn't working.
I give
It's
up.
not working.
I give
Throw
up.
it away. Yeah.
Yeah.
This
Exactly.
is this is painful to have this thing I have to do to stop myself from doing that thing. Personal experience, food, for example. I've actually been at it for probably 4 years now, and trying to move the needle on this one is super hard, and it's catching myself wanting to binge
Mm-hmm.
or in the middle of a binge, because the binging will happen and I'm just completely out of my mind. I'm not even like aware. And
Yeah.
I find myself with a pile of whatever and I'm like shoving it in my mouth and but usually it happens when I'm stressed, and I'm stressed pretty much every day. How much I'm stressed depends on the day. If it's higher than normal stress, I'm looking for something to eat. Right. And trying to catch myself before I go there, before I open up the package of whatever, or even if I want something, if I make the choice to eat something different that's actually not so bad for me, that's the work. That's the painful part that people miss. Like, it's been 4 years of like doing this, and I'm still only like 30%, if that, there.
Yeah. I think, as we're looking at this, I was thinking about, sometimes it's up the hill, but I'm like tripping over the rocks and falling on my face. And next thing you know, I'm kind of going down the hill and off on a rabbit trail, and oh no,
you might camp out somewhere for a while.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the hardest things for me is, at first I'm just oblivious. Like when I was in my emotions and just in my mental, health problems without really knowing what was going there. Again, I didn't know what was going on. I just, why are people mad at me? What's going on? Right. And then I think realizing then, oh, I'm doing this thing. And you were talking about like 30 times a day. So, or whatever it is, that this toxic trait. And now I'm aware of it. And then after I do it, or even while I'm doing it, I'm like, oh, I'm doing the thing, and that realization, and that for me with toxic shame, excuse me, there's that temptation to go, see, you're doing the thing because that's what you do, because you're this, this, and this, and there's that temptation to go into a self-flagellation, a pity party, and almost like a hopelessness, because now I'm realizing it's really bad. And it's hurting people. It's hurting me. It's hurting everyone around me. And now I see what it is and why it's happening. And I realize now that that's progress too, but it's so hard when like better, but you get off in your mind or whatever happens, and you do the thing again. It's like, oh, now I know what it is. I know why I do it. Especially, I think the more we learn about these things, it's like, I know what it is. I know why I do it. I even know what to do, better steps, but I still messed up. What does that mean? And I did a reel about that because last week, I was just feeling that like failure. Is that okay? Like I have to be willing in this process to understand that failure is part of it. And if I'm going to progress, I'm going to have to fail. And, working through that from a standpoint of toxic shame, it's kind of tough. But to realize that is progress. I'm falling on my face because I'm moving forward. Mm-hmm. I'm going down here because I'm moving, and then realizing, I think also is, oh yeah, like coming to and going, oh, I need to head back up this way again.
Right. Yeah. I wanted to talk about the failure part, because progress looks like a lot of failure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Which is
that's tough.
Which is the painful part.
Yeah, especially if you have perfectionistic tendencies or if you've been taught that failure means you are a failure. And there again, the toxic shame thing where you take it as an identity as opposed to this is just what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when you're in the midst of changing something and you're struggling with the very thing that you're trying to change, still it's just feels like a feedback loop that never ends. And you need someone to come along and say, hey, I see what you're trying to do here and I'm proud of you. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
What?
Me? Yeah, you're like looking around.
I'm not.
Oh, wait, I did it on camera.
You did.
You talking to me? Oh, yeah, that's me.
Indeed.
Anyways, you need
Sorry.
You need someone to come along and tell you you're making progress, that you're doing the right thing, because you feel like you're failing or you feel like you're not doing enough. Like for me with food, I'm in the stage of like, okay, I can have some self-control, but I definitely still have struggles and I can't see any more progress. And that's really tough. And there's times I really, and to me, a binge is like a king-size bag of M&Ms. That feels like a binge to me. And I don't do that often.
That is a binge, Rochelle.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's for anybody.
I can confirm that is a binge.
Sometimes you just need a little outside perspective. Yes, honey.
I don't do that often anymore, but when I do it, I feel terrible. And I know, oh my gosh. And the unconscious, like you're saying stuff like the unconscious, like I'm doing this thing, and then you realize, oh my God, I ate the entire bag.
Yeah, I think when you're doing that kind of thing, progress can look like even after the fact realizing that you just binged.
Yeah. And my binges are much less. I mean, yes, a bag of M&Ms is a binge, but my binges could have been like a bag of M&Ms and a candy bar before, or just steadily eating all junk all day long. So it's reduced, but it's still a binge because it's not, in my mind, it's not, now the amount you're eating obviously has a role, but it's what you're feeling when you're doing it that makes it a binge. Because I think, now I don't know of anybody that does this, but personally, but I'm thinking like if someone eats a lot of fruit or something, for them, that could be a binge because of how they feel. Maybe it's just too much of anything, really.
Yeah.
And I think having someone tell you, hey, you're doing really good, that's why I'm thankful for you guys, because I can't see my own progress all the time. And when I did my pre-test, I didn't know what to expect.
For the martial art.
For martial art, yeah, sorry.
For the martial art.
I was like thinking, oh my gosh, and I was more nervous. I'm nervous about my test, but at that point I was more nervous about the pre-test because that would decide whether or not I could actually test on Saturday. And in my mind beforehand, I was like, well, if I don't, I had to take myself, worst case scenarios aren't always good. But in this situation, I think it was good because I was like, well, the worst thing that can happen, she says no, and just have to practice a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
I would have said, hold on, we got to wait a couple more weeks.
Yeah.
That's what I would have said.
And then I would have been like, but that to me, like in that case, saying what's the worst thing that could happen helped. It helped me calm down. Mm-hmm. And telling myself, I'm never going to be in this place again where I waited this long to test. Because I've built a good base of knowledge. I understand things better now than I did before when I took the 2 previous tests I've taken. I'm much more prepared this time. So everything's pointing in that direction of, I'm going to do well.
Of progress.
Yeah, that's progress.
Yeah, for sure.
2 years ago, I didn't believe that about myself. Like there was no way for me to measure what I was doing and if it was even working or not.
If I could share my perspective as your sensei on what I've seen as far as your progress goes. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Rochelle?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
But I want to, after this, I want to talk about what does progress not progressing look like? Like, what do we think that looks like? So anyway, so from my perspective, what I was seeing was there was a lot of things in the way. I had certain criteria you had to meet things you had to be able to do to an extent, despite your, because I believe that you could do certain things to an extent with your, disabilities. Because I knew from watching you that part of the problem was fear, not disability, not physical disability. Like,
right.
I knew that you could do to an extent what needs to be done if you overcame your fears. So a lot of the progress work looked like encouraging you to believe you could do it. And spending time with you, going over and over and over again until it clicked. And so that was a lot of failure as far as like learning the skills that you need to learn. And it just keep failing at it until something happened.
Right.
Right. And then, I was actually pretty impressed during your pretest, to be honest, because I hadn't been paying close attention to any of the other things you've been working on for this whole time. And there was a change a couple of years ago from one thing to another. We changed organizations. So that meant kind of starting over, which in and of itself was kind of a hindrance, because we're, part of a wonderful organization. The Concho, our leader, is just expanding our world like crazy.
Yes, he's great.
And there's so much to learn and so much that's new. It's even a couple of years later, we're still trying to catch up. So I knew that it was going to be an issue for all of us to, progress inside of Shisenkan, but you had the extra bit of dealing with your fear and being committed and pushing yourself and doing all the things that you needed to do to get to your test. And I could also say, as your teacher, I see it happening. Good job. What you were saying we need,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I want to kind of talk about, like, it occurred to me, we're talking about progress looks like, but what does lack of progress look like? Like, what do you see as, just not getting anywhere with anything?
I think it's what we talked about earlier. If someone tries to do something, but it doesn't work the first, ever many times, they just give up. I think that, to me, is actual failure. I think what we're talking about, we talk about failure is not succeeding, whereas failure to me is actually just giving up. And saying, well, I can't do it, so what's the point? Or it's too painful, or whatever is happening. I think Evelyn was saying, like, a lot of people have this perfectionist or this like instant, I should be able to do this instantly mentality.
Right.
And if they can't do it, they just give up because it's not happening for them.
Yeah.
And pushing themselves to try is really, really tough. And you can't make progress if you don't push yourself. And I think the best example I can say in a practical sense of that is athletes who are in the Olympics or something like that. I've often thought to myself, some in the Olympics, even if they don't get a medal, they're competing at the world level. You can't get any higher than that. Like, that's amazing to me. Even if I was to watch someone do that, even if they don't get a medal, they don't place or whatever, they still got there. They still put themselves through all of that sacrifice, all that hard work to achieve that. And that's the best example I can think of some people who just, in a practical physical way, don't give up. They keep going, they keep pushing, they keep striving until they get there. And then, like, they obviously compete in other things as well. But I think an ordinary person who's trying to do something and just can't seem to do it right, or they get discouraged, they just give up. I think that's a lack of progress. They kind of go back to the way they were doing it before because that's what's comfortable and that's what's working for them. And I've certainly done that myself. I've certainly lived my life in a way of wanting to be comforted and not really wanting to try until recently.
Yeah. I think one thing I've seen is someone who's angry when pushed
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
try. They feel, like they can't, so why are you pushing me?
Mhm.
So I'm a pretty firm believer. There's exceptions to this rule. If you're missing legs, obviously you're not going to do a backflip without your prosthesis or something. Although I'm sure there's somebody out there with no legs can figure out how to do a backflip.
I'm sure there's two. No
That's
doubt
not going to
about
be
that.
easy. If you're missing your arms, you're probably not going to get into crocheting or something, Anyway, I'm just saying that there's unless there's obvious problems that aren't an actual hindrance, there's a way around, there's a way through, there's a way to learn, there's a way to do something that you can actually accomplish your goal. So when I encounter somebody who's like, no, I can't do it, I'm like, what do you mean you can't do it? Have you tried this? Have you tried that? So I feel like that's one way that a lack of progress manifests itself, is just being angry when pushed.
Yeah, and I think that idea of not being willing to listen to someone else, willing to receive input, not being willing to change or improve, even the idea of I'm okay as I am. I've seen people like that. And in fact, it's funny, I actually I saw someone that I hadn't seen in a few years. I saw her in a grocery store. And there were certain things about her that I found off-putting. But I hadn't seen her in a while, and people change, and she was talking to me and I thought, same old things. And anytime that someone would try to correct her, and she wouldn't listen, she thought she was fine as she was. And yet she still had the same complaints too. Why is my life like this? And I kind of felt sad because I thought, people have tried to reason with her, to talk to her, and she won't listen. And which makes me think, at what level might I be guilty of that as well? Am I open to listen? Am I open to hear something? Am I open to try something where I'm pretty much guaranteed to fail, at least at first? I think there have been a lot of things that, and in fact, even in life where I have given up. I think staying in that is where there's a problem. I think it's better if you don't give up at all, but I've also been there, and I used to think, well, I gave up, so I'm hopeless. But if you give up, you don't have to stay in that. You can decide, all right, I'm going to try something. I think that willingness to get out of that hole, whatever it is. So if it's that idea of I can't change, or I won't change, or, it's too hard, what if, because I think you have to have a certain amount of misery where you are.
And hopelessness.
Where you go, all right, this is untenable. I have to do something. And I think that progress can be, and this is for me almost every day now, because I'm thick in it right now, is what is one thing I could do today to make progress on that thing that's terrifying me, or on that thing that just seems too hard? What is one little thing I could do instead of it's too hard, let me go self-medicate, which we talked about a little bit last time. So I think it's lack of progress is not even doing one little thing. And in fact, you could even get worse. It's not just a lack of progress. I think few people just stay here. I think there's a tendency to sink down.
Yeah, I think I agree. So lack of progress looks like unwilling to be open, unwilling to be willing, or just a general unwillingness. Closed mind, a closed heart, hopelessness, despair, and being okay with all of that.
Yeah.
I knew there was this woman I cleaned for, eons ago. She was neighbors to a friend of mine, and she was this older woman, just like in her 60s or 70s. And she had such anger and hatred for some people. And she would bring it up every time I'd go over there to clean her house. She'd bring it up and she'd talk about it and she'd talk about it. And I was like, have you ever considered forgiving them? She's like, I will not forgive them. I was like, okay, well, okay. You're probably going to suffer then. And she surely did suffer, and she died like that. And I don't know, I think her anger, I mean, I'm not a medical professional, so I can't say for sure, but I think her anger contributed to her physical problems.
Yeah, probably.
The stress of it, because she was always so wound up, like, just like visibly shaking and angry every time I was there. God, it wasn't at me.
Yeah.
It was it was really uncomfortable to be around that, because I was pretty new Christian, but I at least understood to some extent we're not supposed to hold on to these things.
Yeah.
Forgive and let go. At least that's how I understood it at the time. So I was a little baffled. I think she called herself a Christian, so I was a little bit baffled by her lack of progress and forgiveness and the unwillingness to let go.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately led to her death. That's just my opinion, though.
Yeah. I think one of the toughest examples of people who don't want to change are people who are addicted to drugs. I'm trying to keep this as least detail as possible, but little detail as possible. But I've seen television shows where they depict the people entering into an intervention unexpectedly, and the family members trying to tell them how what they're doing is affecting them. Maybe their physical life is in danger. And it's just, it's mind-boggling to watch these people just refuse help.
Yeah.
And it's really tough to sit there and see that and think to yourself, that person could die and they don't care because they're so addicted to whatever they're addicted to.
Yeah.
And following their story through the hour or 2 hour, whatever would be, whether they were successful or not, really depended upon what decisions they made as far as going to rehab or not at that point. And a couple of them did, and now there's the current statistics are not very good for people to stay sober past a certain point. I don't know how true that is, but
recidivism in alcoholic and drugs is pretty high for people relapsing. I mean, it's pretty high, but the problem isn't that they don't want to change. The problem is why they're addicted to begin with, and whether or not they're dealing with the reason they're addicted.
Yeah.
I'm sure the physical cravings are tough. I wouldn't know about the drugs and alcohol. It's not a thing for me. I have the food addiction. I know what that's like.
Yeah,
and
same here.
If I went to a rehab and came out, unless I've dealt with the reason why I overeat, I'm going to still overeat.
Yeah.
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 And so I think progress then would be discovering why do I do this? What's under the surface? And being curious enough and brave enough really to face what that addiction or whatever it is has been trying to mask.
Yeah, and I think progress looks like having hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're hopeless, there's no point in trying. Right?
Right.
But if you have hope that you could change, that you could develop skills to overcome your eating, I have hope for that. Even though I've been trying for most of my adult life to lose weight, I have had success, and then I've gained it back and ballooned up to over 300 pounds during COVID and came down off of that. Now I'm starting to gain weight again. It's been back and forth, up and down, et cetera, et cetera. But I have hope still. That's what keeps me going back to therapy, talking about my problems, thinking about it, sitting with myself when, after dinner, we had wonderful crab bisque and some on bread, and I made a creamed spinach kale thing.
It was very delicious. The whole
Very
thing
delicious
was.
dinner, right? And I'm sitting there going, Rochelle's got ice cream. I really want some dessert. And sitting there with myself going, you know what? You're trying to deal with your blood sugar levels and trying to get that under control. You're doing a pretty good job. You might not want to have that ice cream. You might not, yeah, but actually I do. I do want to have it. Like, not that I have any ice cream to have, okay? But that's beside the point.
Yeah.
The point is sitting with myself and having that feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and really feeling that feeling and just not giving into the urge just because I'm having it, because I'm hopeful that I might not have the urge someday.
Right.
Yeah.
At least not to that degree. Where I'm sitting there going, I really want ice cream. I don't have any. I really want ice cream. I don't have any. Bah! That's what I'm feeling inside.
Yeah. And where you could start to feel like this, almost like a victim mentality, or, if I wasn't so big, I could do it. If I had a higher metabolism, or, but being able to realize, to actually take the time and think about it. And I think too, hope is key. And there have been times when each of you has given me hope that I didn't have for myself. And I think that having a support system, when we talked a little bit about this, what do you see? Because I don't see, like, for example, I don't see progress. And I've been there. Do you see something? Do you see something in me? Can you tell me? Because I'm feeling just overwhelmed right now. And being able to hear honest appraisals from people who really love you, not somebody, oh yeah, you're doing fine, honey, but here is where I see you're doing things differently. Mm-hmm. You used to be like this, and now you're like this. You've made progress.
I know you want to say something, Rochelle, but I really wanted to ask Evelyn if I could talk briefly about that day you were having a bad night and we talked in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's about progress. It's a little bit crazy
in
a good way.
Yeah. It felt the opposite of progress.
Well, yeah, that's the point I want to make, is that you contacted us in the middle of the night because you thought you were losing your mind, and because you were having all these huge feelings, and you were up all night long, and you woke your mom up for prayer. And as soon as I woke up in the morning and saw the message, I started contacting you. And then the three of us got on the phone together and started talking to you about what was going on. And I said, I'm actually encouraged. You had a terrible night and you feel terrible right now, but I'm actually encouraged by this, because this is what progress looks like. Mm-hmm. And you were surprised by that.
I was.
You started crying.
And it changed everything. Suddenly it was like a huge hope injection. And I was able to see it differently. What I thought was destroying me was part of my healing. But I needed to hear that. That changed everything. I thought I'd have to sign myself into a mental health clinic for a couple of weeks or something. I had all these thoughts I could lose my job, And when you said this is actually a good thing, all of that darkness, that hopelessness, and I'm even feeling a little bit now like I remember what it was like. It's awful. It lost its power. It's like light came in, hope came in, and I was like, well, if that's the case, Well,
because we were looking at 9+ years of friendship, of things going on that you were making very, very, very slow progress, if you were making progress at all. And we would have conversations and things would happen. We'd have more conversations and, we're trying to keep our friendship going. And there was just a struggle going on. And there was a lot of you faking things and pushing yourself to do things when you didn't really want to, and acting, and a lot of struggle there. And when you finally opened up your heart to feeling your feelings, it felt terrible. But to me, from an outside perspective, it was a good sign, because finally you're open and willing. And I felt hopeful for you. And I feel like, Rochelle was talking about this earlier, like the whole hope thing, the perspective, the outside perspective thing is really essential.
Yeah. I wanted to share a much less intense situation, but I know that you've had struggles in our martial art, Ev, and they've been fairly consistent. And it struck me, I said this to you a couple of weeks ago, it struck me that you're in 5th Q now, and you didn't get there by not doing it. You got there by doing it. And you've been, I don't know what you think of yourself in terms of your progress, but you've gotten there. You're halfway to Shodan now. That's huge. And I think I felt like you needed to hear that, because I've watched you struggle through things and not understand things, and your brain works the way it does, but you've done the thing, you've done the work, you've gotten to it through all of that and through your trauma, and like that's the kind of thing we all need to hear.
Yeah.
You're doing the work, you're doing the thing, you're making progress. And fortunately, in our martial arts, we can tangibly measure our progress by listening to our sensei, taking our tests, and moving through the cues, the levels. And that's comforting to me, because there aren't a lot of barometers for success in life unless someone tells you, especially if you have trauma.
Yeah.
Well,
so
Rochelle,
it's nice to have one of that.
You did the same for me, I don't know, about 10 or 12 years ago. When I was going through a really rough time, you kept saying to me, and I see how much you've changed. You said that to me a lot during that period. And I was kind of baffled. I'm like, what? Change? How? What? But eventually I started to believe you and started to see it for myself. Like, I had to, because I think comparison helps. Like, I was like this and now I'm like that.
Right.
Yeah.
That comparison is actually helpful to see how you've come from one thing to another thing. And if you can't see it for yourself, it is helpful to have someone go, you know what, I really see that you've changed. I really see that you've grown.
Yeah.
It's a shot of an injection of hope, as you said, Evelyn. So
yeah.
And Ed, when you said to me last year, I guess it was right around the time that we had the seminar for the martial art, and you said that it felt like we were working together, and you said, I feel like I was working with a peer. That was such a fleeting moment, but that stuck with me. Like, I was like, oh, it's actually working now. What do you know?
yeah.
Well, it was remarkable. And I had been with you, I started a little bit before you did. So, and even in, before we did the martial art, we were doing self-defense. And even with that, you were struggling a lot, and you seem to be like in your head a lot, and not that all of us don't still slip back a little bit, but to see, it was like a flip was a switch was flipped. I was like,
was that a hindrance?
That was a hindrance
or a hinderer?
No hinderer. So and Rochelle, I can tell you, ever since you said that to me, it's like it stirred up my desire to work on my Q stuff more. And every day I'm either grabbing my Hambo or my Joe. I've been working in the yard. I was just thinking today I could work outside with my rock shakubo. That's a 6-foot staff. Yeah, the other two are shorter, for those who don't know. But I want to do that. I feel like your words of encouragement kicked out a blockage, and how wonderful that we can give that to each other. And I was thinking, looking for ways, the Bible talks about, looking for ways to spur one another on. And I thought, when we do see that, like I at work, for example, there's this one gal that I'm just so thankful for her. And every once in a while, I'm just like, thank you so much for the work that you do. And, try to be specific too. When you notice this one thing or whatever it was, to say something like, I see you're doing this thing, because who knows, as we said before, we don't know what they're going through. Right. They might have stuff that, and it seems like, you hear this other places too, like, yeah, just, be encouraging. But I think we all need that reminder, especially when we consider how impactful it's been for us to hear that encouragement, because that could get somebody, they may be struggling, maybe stuck, like even with, and they might not even realize at what level they're stuck, and they share something and we're able to say, here's what I see. And that might help them in their progress. So
yeah, I noticed Saturday when you were doing that technique, there was a lot more intensity. It actually took me by surprise.
Oh, I've been working on that
way
too.
I don't want to get too detailed, but the way you were doing it, my wrist, everything was like really intense. There was definitely a change for sure, for the better. We don't want we in our martial art, like the more pain the better. I don't know if I should explain that or not, but the techniques we do have to feel a certain way. So we're looking for a certain type of pain in a certain area, whatever it is, wrist, whatever.
Wrist, elbow, shoulder, there, whatever. Wrist, elbow, shoulder, whatever.
And if it's not there, we have to tell the person trying to do the technique, hey, you got to adjust this or do this. And then we know.
More pain, more.
Yeah,
which is weird, but that's what we martial artists do.
More pain, more gain.
But it did seem like you were more confident in your movement, which was a big change from what I've experienced with you before. You had a lot of hesitation, a lot of like, oh my gosh, I've forgotten. There was no hesitation whatsoever. You were doing this. You were doing it.
All right. Well, it's been an hour and
almost 19 minutes.
16 minutes.
16 minutes. So I think we should probably wrap this baby up.
Okay. If we have to.
I know. We can keep talking forever.
I do have to go to bed. I have to be up at 4:30.
Boy.
Well, yeah, we definitely should stop then. So to sum up, what we're talking about is progress. In trauma recovery is often painful, slow. It often looks like going backwards.
Discouraging at times. Yeah.
Can be discouraging. Can feel lonely. But it's really about slow, steady progress over time, and with encouragement and outside perspective and hope and all those things, you'll keep working at something. You'll arrive at this place you've been trying to get to suddenly, and you're like, oh, I'm here. And you can see how you got from here to here, and you can see the progress that you made. It gives you more energy to keep going with all the other things you got to work on. And a lack of progress often looks like hopelessness.
Yeah.
And discouragement, and, well, not discouragement so much, but hopelessness, despair, an unwillingness, a closed offness. I don't know if that's a word. I'm just making words up.
We'll just go with it.
Okay.
We'll talk later.
Okay.
We'll talk later. Grammar police coming your way.
Anyway. So and just generally being closed off to not input or suggestions or the idea that you could change or the idea that you need to change. So I feel like we really covered this pretty well. I mean, I don't think I have anything to add at this point.
I agree.
All right. Well, if you're listening to this, please share, like, and subscribe. All those things.
Yes.
Do all the things, please.
If you want to smash the button, feel free. If you gently tap it, feel free.
The like button.
The like button, yes.
Not the dislike.
The subscribe button, too.
And the subscribe button.
And the subscribe. Ring the bell.
I don't care how you go about it. It doesn't matter to me. What matters is you make progress.
Yes. That's
Do
the
it.
most important thing.
Do it.
Just do it.
All right. Well, I'm Stephanie Dunham.
I'm Evelyn Mason.
And I'm Rochelle Knapp.
Have a good night, day, whatever.
Whatever. Have a good day, night, whatever.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks so much for joining us as we discussed such an important topic. We hope you got some food for thought and encouragement to keep going and keep growing. See you later, Bear Club.